to further engage the public, and we have some ideas about maybe starting some of our conversations with the community on our agenda items, and we hope you'll come along for that ride. And we'll talk more about different ways to sort of mix up the meetings as well as keep them engaging and keep the community engaged. And
including maybe going outside of these walls.
Yes, going outside of these walls.
That's our grand, one of the grand ideas. But certainly having community speak first, I think.
We're very excited about that idea. We think everybody in this room will endorse that. And the last thing I'll say is we have this plan to have committee members step up and into areas of expertise that you may have. Some people have already done that. And we're going to continue to ask people to think about specific little areas you might take off and run with as we delegate more and more interest areas on the community on transportation. So thank you so much for allowing me to sit in this role, and let's take it away.
All right. Yeah, you guys, I mean, I'm only a few months sooner than Jami joining, so it's a bit of a new team, but super excited. You guys most of you all know me, and I think you two are like the newest members, but I was chair of almost 10 years ago now of the board for 3 years. So I have done a lot of work in transportation throughout my career, both on emerging tech and other things, but really just think, again, I've learned so much from you, Andrew. Really, you're very tough shoes for us to try to fill, but you're still here, and you're going to be a part of every meeting that we do by giving us an MTA recap. So I guess with all that in mind, we can do a quick DOT recap. We don't have just, I guess we can announce, but I think you saw on the agenda that the one item we had for resolution was postponed on West 70th Street. So we have 5 or 6 items just to go through with you all to give you updates and other things. And I see we have, is it Laura Sachs?
Hi, Laura.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I don't know if you have anything you wanted to bring up. We have you can feel free to weigh in as we go through the agenda.
Spell your last name.
Sachs, S-A-C-H-S.
I had grandmother Laura Sachs, but it was S-A-C-H-S.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Just happy to listen.
Okay,
Sure. Thank you for being here.
And not to be a super geek, but Andrew, like when he I just.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although
I'm really here as a
Oh, thank you.
I'm his handler, so you got
Right.
And I really like the Uber comment. That was really funny.
I couldn't resist.
You shouldn't have. It's good.
Yeah. So so we had a really good meeting on Friday afternoon with Ed Penkar, who is the Manhattan Borough Commissioner for DOT, and Kleiman. I don't know if Kleiman is on yet. One of the things that came out of the meeting was that we were going to have somebody from DOT. We typically do have somebody from DOT on every transportation call, regardless of whether there's an agenda item or not.
And it's often Colleen.
Yes, and so tonight, I don't know why there's not one, but usually there is, and we don't have an item up for resolution anyway, but hopefully there will be somebody who's joining tonight. But it was a very productive meeting. It lasted well over an hour, so they took, it was only scheduled to be an hour. They answered most of our questions, including sort of the most time-sensitive one that I know we've been discussing as a committee, which was our letter. So we'll report back on that. And the other items we went through a little bit on were 72nd Street, which I know, Laura, you've been involved in, 71st Street, the bike corral resolution we did. Overall, looking at DOT data, working with them. Again, they're going to come monthly. They also agreed to having a quarterly standing item on the agenda, transportation agenda, with DOT, Colleen or Ed, hopefully, to basically have a Q&A with the public. So we're going to start scheduling those in advance so members of the public know that every 3 months there will be a conversation with DOT.
Mm-hmm.
So those were just a few of the things, but I guess just digging down one step deeper, the left turn intersections, and Jami, like this, I know you took very copious notes, and I didn't take as good of notes. So, but the left turn intersection resolution, or the letter that we sent, was sort of, I don't know how you want to say it, turned back on us a little bit, to the extent that they want us to identify
Yes.
the intersections.
The
Okay.
5 worst.
The 5
Five,
worst,
yeah.
right, and Andrew, please weigh in as well. So their thought was that by doing that, once we have those intersections, they will come and do site visits for those intersections and proceed then with courses of action. And their overall response to our letter was that a more surgical, sort of a bit by bit approach versus a blanket approach would be more efficient and more successful for them to actually implement the changes that we want. So rather, I'm just, I know you're looking at me, I can't see through the mask, but my point is that I'm just reporting back what they said.
Yeah,
and
they
we
didn't
can-
say this
yeah.
was not gonna happen. They just
Exactly.
suggested we do
Yeah.
this first and then they will follow through.
If anything, they suggested it was likely to happen if we could identify
The 5 worst.
5 dangerous intersections.
Right.
You're Rosa, so you go first, but I have a question.
Go ahead, Ken.
Well, originally, when we asked them, they said, well, they would do it because they have the statistics and they know where the intersections are, supposedly, presumably. And now this seems to me like it's more of a delaying. Way to delay.
We did raise with them that had happened.
Mhm.
I think they're starting over and they're telling us they want us to identify the 5 things, and I'm willing to give them, I think we sort of thought we were willing to give them that.
And the
Me-
point of my resolution is that all of these intersections should have this treatment. Like it shouldn't, there shouldn't be an intersection where somebody can make a left turn against a crossing pedestrian with oncoming traffic legally.
So may I respond to both points?
Yeah.
On the point about, you are correct, initially Colleen had said they would identify the intersections, but here we were sitting with Ed, Jennifer, his deputy, and Colleen. And with Ed in the room, he said that they would prefer that we identify the intersections. So it's a different, frankly, power dynamic. So I think with that feedback, I think would do well to identify the intersections. With regard to all versus 5, something I recall discussed quite a bit here at this table. In my view, and this is now just me speaking, it's enemy versus, the
Enemy of the-
perfect being the enemy of the good. And they pretty much said to us, let's try and identify 5 and move toward correcting 5 with a view to then maybe 10 and then maybe more, rather than trying to put our arms around all.
So then the question is, how are we going to do it?
Right, so that's why we're
So-
bringing it back.
and those are just my thoughts, Ken.
So this is frustrating because as much as we have some really, really smart and resourceful people here, the city has the data. Right now, we can go to Crash Mapper, and obviously, wherever there have been crashes, injury, death is clearly, I mean, I assume that's what we're gonna focus on, but they do have the data. So what are we supposed to do? Just give a layman's opinion? We think it should be here? I mean, that seems very circuitous.
I think they're looking at the data. They're looking at Crash Mapper. That is the definitive source. I think they mentioned that in the
They did
meeting.
mention it.
Okay,
Sure.
so they're looking at that. I don't think we need to tell them what they already see in that. I think what they depend on is man on the street, man or woman on the street, person on the street, anecdotal priorities. And just like anything else, priorities for us matter to them. So they want to know what the public who's coming to us with the most concerns about which intersections. And what, in addition to what we are seeing as a committee.
And my sense was they would then see where the concerns we bring them, the 5 we identify intersect with the data.
Hmm.
Now, if Colleen comes on, we can,
But one of the things that came out that was pretty clear is left-hand turns on 2-way avenues is far more dangerous than on 1-way avenues. That's just common sense. And so if we look at Central Park West and West End Avenue and Broadway and Riverside is obviously, you can't go west of there unless you're going onto the highway. So It's basically West End,
Mhm.
Broadway, and Central Park West. And we can easily, I think, find through Crash Mapper, or we can ask DOT for their help in finding the number 1 or number 2 or 3 places where those kind of accidents are happening with left turns.
Or it could be cross streets too.
It could be,
110.
Yes,
yes.
yeah, it could be those
So-
2-lane cross streets.
So I think the question now is, over the course of the next month, how do we want to move this forward? Like, how do we as a committee want to start going through the identification process of these intersections? And going back to DOT.
Was I correct in saying they look at Crash Mapper so they know which intersections have the most incidents?
They know that, but they don't know what that may be. They want to juxtapose that against what, and it may be the same 5 intersections that we come up with, but it may not be. There may be other ones that come up anecdotally from what we're seeing. And I think they want to have that information. They want to go on the site visits with us. And then that will lead
They
to.
want to do site visits?
Yeah, they want to
Yes,
go on the
they-
site visits
They
with us.
very clearly
Yes,
want to do site
yes.
visits.
We identify
You
the
want 5?
intersections and they'll
5.
come.
5.
Well, I can think of 2 already.
I mean, I'm happy to like have us decide. I mean, what do you think? Having them decide them tonight, the 5?
Yeah, I'm sure
I mean-
Ken could come up with 10.
Can we just say the
Yeah.
5 with the most crashes?
Yes, in order of priority.
No,
With the-
but it has to
That's
meet a
fine.
certain criteria, like a 2-way street,
Mhm.
Exactly.
turning off of a 2-way street,
Mhm.
Exactly.
and not having, a dedicated left
Mhm.
turn. So, but the 2 I thought were 106 and Amsterdam, where there's already been a fatality,
Yeah,
precisely that situation.
Yeah.
And 97th and Central Park West.
Mhm.
Right now, there's construction there.
Eastbound 106, turning west, north on Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would meet that criteria.
But I just wonder why they're doing this when is it that they just want the community board? I mean, dare I say it's like liability, like you're the ones who identified it, not us. I mean, like, what, I mean,
I don't really
it's-
care. I honestly, like, I don't really care
Alright.
what it is. I think we have their attention on this. Let's
Okay,
at least work with them on this if we find, if it's.
79th and Amsterdam
untenable
was
over the
another
next
one of those until they changed the light
Mhm.
routine on that intersection.
Community.
71st where Amsterdam Broadway intersect.
Say that again?
71st where Broadway Amsterdam intersect.
Yeah,
Crash Mapper will vouch for,
that's a
For-
big, that's a
for
big.
left-
for left turn.
well, it's 2-way on Broadway,
Left,
it's
yeah.
uptown on Amsterdam.
It's a
and
crazy
it's
intersection for a
westbound
lot
on
of reasons.
71st.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Lot going on there.
Let me just remind everybody, committee members,
Oh, right.
did you sign
No, I
in, please?
didn't. Thank you very much.
Okay, we've got 2 more.
Jesse was gonna bring out some more of these, but I don't think they're out here yet.
I'm not totally sure, Laura, that intersection fits the criteria. Because what we're looking for is where a car's turning left against oncoming traffic that's allowed to keep coming as opposed to being stopped. I'm not sure that happens.
Yeah, that's a very special intersection, the one you just mentioned.
It
Oh,
deserves
thank you.
attention.
Dangerous. It deserves attention.
That's got a whole host of issues. Here you go, Carey.
So,
And-
I'm sorry, Carey, so you think that it doesn't quite meet the criteria of 2-way, no dedicated left?
Right.
It's funky in a different way, but not quite what we're looking for these top 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so Laura, we'll put it on
That
the
does,
list
yes,
for
that doesn't mean we
future.
don't look at that
Right,
intersection. That's
right.
got
Put
several
on the
issues.
list.
I mean, it's certainly one of the most dangerous intersections on the Upper West Side.
Yeah,
Anywhere Broadway crosses meets that criteria.
that's right.
Carey.
I was just going to suggest process-wise, I think we're broadly aligned on the criteria that we're looking for, but as a way to move forward,
Yes.
following this meeting, should we all, after we adjourn, consult Crash Mapper and we can
fine,
circulate by
too.
email in the next day or
Yeah.
two our proposed
That's-
list, and I think we'll come.
Yeah,
up
we
with more
just
than
wanted to
5
take,
then.
since tonight we have
Yeah.
the time to discuss as a group, we wanted to just see if any stood out
Mhm,
from people tonight that we should look into, because I do think we should go beyond just what the numbers are telling us to
Mhm.
find out what.
Oh,
the-
90 West End and 96.
Yes,
And I-
100%.
I personally know somebody.
I
who
do
was hit
too. 100%.
Okay, and then the the remaining couple of them will solicit, but
We've
generally
asked-
speaking, those three for sure.
We've asked for a
Hopefully.
traffic cam at West End and 96 for years now. It's a logical place.
Also, I don't know, just on West End and 96 as well, they installed, I don't even know what you call them, but they're like yellow, I don't know, in the middle of the street, like in the turning. So if you're turning, making that left and
Yeah.
you're going north, there's like this yellow, kind of like a speed bump or something.
It's to
Smaller?
make, it's an extension to make the turn slower. Of course, when there's snow on the ground, it's invisible.
It's also very confusing, like, because you kind of go and you see it and like it makes you kind of turn maybe wider than you normally would.
That's the
And it's
idea.
kind of
It's
shocking,
supposed
so
to,
it
right?
makes that situation, I think that Ken's referring to, even worse, because when you're driving, you don't see it, and if someone's walking and then you see that, you kind of like swerve not to go over it, and then it, there's
That
just
was
like so
done
much
because we
going
asked
on.
DOT for so many years
Yeah.
to do something because there's so many school kids
Right.
crossing
Yeah.
96th Street.
Comment.
I just don't know if it's helpful or if it's like another
That was
thing
their
that you could
solution.
like
Yes.
ride, you could just drive over that kind of,
And it's not elevated, it's just,
it's like a
Yeah.
yellow kind of speed.
You remember that,
bump
Howard?
type
We
of-
we were
yeah.
asking for years
I
for
mean,
that.
maybe it works, I don't know, just, it's kind of like with the.
So might they say that they've already addressed that intersection?
They might say that.
Well,
well, it's
But
not,
that's
not in
not,
the way
yeah.
that we're asking.
yeah.
Not in the way they were asking, right.
So once we get these, let's agree that in the next couple of days, we'll conclude as a team that we have these 5 intersections. How do we want to go about
And if it comes to
Scheduling the site
6,
visits.
that's okay too.
I mean, I'm sort of feeling like the site visits are gonna have to take place over the course of the next 5-6 weeks. Weather's getting better outside
Mhm,
to do it.
Mhm.
Maybe this is site visits with DOT or just,
Mhm.
It's with DOT on every
Yes.
one of them, yeah. So do we want to do one a week? Do we want to do a couple of, like 5 during the course of a week? Do we want to
because it depends on how,
assign like numbers?
I mean, if they're
Geographically,
very close, we could do
yeah.
2 or 3 in the
Yeah.
same visit. I mean,
right. yeah.
Yes,
Well, do we want to try to get them all done before the time of the April meeting? I'm assuming.
That might be a
And
tough, we
even
might,
their
we don't know their
schedules, I'm not
schedule
sure.
yet.
But definitely this spring.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have they explained the need for site visits? I mean, we're asking them to put in life-saving infrastructure. And like, do we need to go out and show them, like people?
I think for the ones that are in Crash Mapper, we may not need to, but if there's one that sort of is,
Okay, so
Yeah.
maybe we don't need to go to. Old Folks.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they left it up to us to, I think, to be like, we're happy to go on any site.
Yeah, I think they were offering,
Oh,
almost as a
okay.
public service, to go on the site visits if we wanted to show them what our concern was.
Oh, okay.
I
so-
don't think it was a
optional.
prerequisite.
But
Yeah.
they didn't even
Oh, that-
offer to
that was
bring
my
refreshments either.
That was my
All right,
sense.
that's better.
Yeah, like, no, like 20 minutes or whatever it is. So now that it's lighter, longer, we can do them in the, I don't know what time of day would be even the best time to show this.
Yeah, the
Rush hour?
PM rush would be
PM rush.
different than the AM rush for sure on some of
Yeah.
these.
Okay. All right, so that's where we stand with the left turn intersections status. Anything, any other questions or anything on that? We can move on to the other few things that we talked about. We talked about a lot of different things.
So we'll pick up
Yeah.
Carey's suggestion of circulating this via
Mhm.
via civilized and civil email discourse.
Well, we can also,
No extraneous.
I actually think we should,
unnecessary
I actually think a
commentary.
better thing to do, not better, but like,
Spreadsheet?
put it in Drive.
Yeah, let's do it in the drive. I like
I
it.
think just everyone, this is like one message that we want to try to
Yep.
drive people to
And we can
Drive.
make a little spreadsheet in drive too.
Yeah,
which makes
and
it
it'll
much
show
easier.
who's adding what and we can comment and if we need to or not. But
Right.
I think that's the easiest way to pull it. and
Where
everyone
our
can go in and
comments will
just-
be civil and courteous.
So the next item we talked about with them, or just not in any particular order, was the 72nd Street bike lane.
Mhm.
And sort of that passageway west to east.
Mhm.
And again, guys, weigh in, Jamie and Andrew, but I think from that, I got a couple of takeaways. One was that there is well, 3 things. Streetopia is going to be doing a site visit with DOT at some point in the near future. And I believe we and the elected officials, probably your block association and others, are going to be informed about it when it happens. I don't know if you're involved with Streetopia or know of them, but I think that they have wanted to sort of host something. So I believe that is on the horizon. They didn't give us an exact date. They did say informally that the support that we have shared and made public about the 72nd bike lane is not necessarily shared with Community Board 8 on the east side.
Right.
And so, in particular, we talked about how, the west side has a lot more commercial than the east side, which has primarily,
East 72nd Street is largely,
it's
if not all,
residential,
residential.
residential. So as much as like, I want the bike lane, their concerns are much more driven by residents who live along 72nd Street. Am I correct? And like, that's sort of the sense we got from the meeting. So I think they feel like they can get the support that's gonna be needed to get it done, but it's gonna take some coaxing and sort of working with Community Board 8 to make it
I
happen.
know one of the co-chairs of CB8's Transportation Committee. I will try to get him to see if he can push this a little further.
I know people. on
Yeah.
CBA.
So maybe you can, but that
great.
seems to be like, if there is a stumbling block or a hurdle in any sense, that seems to be it. And look, it's a valid, like, I don't agree with it, but if our neighborhood, if the west side was full of residences, I'm sure we would have a
But
fair number of
by
people.
the
who
same,
know.
by the same token, if CB8 comes up with a street that they would rather have this on, we can, since
Yes.
it does go right through the transverse, we can have it go in the park, around the drive and exit at the street that they prefer.
Sure.
That doesn't mean we don't do it here.
I mean, so this, but why, this is just to do from like river to river,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Well, like, I mean, if we could just get it on the west side, like in
Right,
our
right.
district, I don't know
That's
why.
right.
we-
They did raise that
Yeah.
as an option,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but DOT would prefer to have it run straight.
The
through.
selling point
Yes.
Just
is,
to have it
this is the
stop.
place where the bike lane. I mean,
Versus
yeah.
96,
yeah.
like or not
Question,
versus 96,
is a center protected bike lane a thing? Like, instead of doing it on the curb, doing it in like the center in between both
Yes.
lanes of traffic and having it, and that way you don't lose the parking?
Think about that. That's like very
Does it
European.
exist in the city?
Yeah, there's,
That's
I know
very
Why-
downtown Brooklyn's better like that, it's two
Yeah.
ways in the middle of the street.
Because then you're not removing parking.
Well, then you may have to remove parking because, you're right, exactly.
Gonna wait.
To widen the street.
If you have it,
But-
like you just said, Howard, and like you're suggesting, does that not make exiting the bike lane dangerous because you'll be exiting into traffic no matter which direction you go?
Not really, because if you're going into either park, it's safe.
No, if you're turning onto
Yeah,
an
but if you're
avenue.
going
or a
into
street.
an avenue.
Let's say you want to go to the
Like-
store.
Oh, yes, you're going against.
Yeah, I think
Right,
that's.
a good point.
But I
Maybe
mean,
that's
shouldn't
not what
you
I've seen
get
it
to a
done,
place
but
and
it's
wait
not-
for a light?
it's not very
Wouldn't
common.
it, like,
Yeah, but then buses and I don't know how. Yeah.
There's issues that they're not
Yeah.
unsolvable, but
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
issues.
Laura, did you have
I
a?
just want to mention that the east side, there is a bike lane on 71st and 73rd, flanking 72nd. I bike them all the time.
Mhm.
So it's a different condition. We have no crosstown bike lanes on the west side until you get further up into the 80s. So we are not looking at apples and apples. And there is retail on East 72nd at the intersections where Madison
No,
crosses.
yeah,
But there are bike lanes right now, so it's possible that it's a different condition on east and west, and we should probably proceed at least acknowledging that we're not looking at the same things on both
But
sides.
they're painted like this, right?
They're not protected,
Yeah.
but there are other crosstown streets, like 60th Street has a protected bike lane, 61st has a protected bike lane. So they're not protected, but they could be on 71st.
So you would be okay with having the cross-town lane divert to do what it's doing now? Like as long as we have the
I'm
west
okay
side.
with anything that provides safe places for people to bike.
Like,
But I don't think it's our job to solve the
Exactly.
Yeah,
the
we're not
DOT's
the planners,
problems and
yeah.
also the Upper East Side's problems. It would, if we built it on 72nd Street, it would kind of be like Car-Free Central Park, which happened, and then Prospect Park
right.
went car-free. and that was
I'm
a-
sorry, but Peter Arnson's been trying to make a comment and I don't know that we have any public visible on the screen.
Jesse?
I think Jessie stepped
She just
out.
stepped out.
Yeah.
She did, she's not in her office.
Can somebody text Peter and just say, well, get
Yeah,
to.
I told him we would do that.
If I could
Okay.
just, I agree with
Okay,
your
Peter,
point.
we're coming to you.
I agree with your point, except I think DOT's like mandate is to make this like one fell.
They don't have a mandate.
There was some.
They do have mandate, they're the Department of Transportation.
Yeah, I
They're
know,
gonna-
but nobody's telling, they can do whatever they want. They could do,
Yeah.
you know, they did Central Park West on one side, they did New Fifth Avenue.
Beverly, is that
They
Beverly?
don't.
Yeah, all these people are
they
not
don't have
showing.
to,
Yeah, well, now they are. Also-
They're using this, I think they're using it as an excuse.
Well, I think we're not gonna litigate what DOT is thinking in the back of their minds on this. We're trying to like get the bike lane on the west side in however we can. And if
Right.
part of that is they need to make the east siders comfortable with it, then that's what we have, we need
If
to,
that's what they're saying, but it sounds like.
I think it is a bit of what they're saying. So that's
They
just
were
what we're
pretty,
relaying.
pretty open about that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add something that's
Oh.
maybe related, and Laura, I think you were on an email that, with Carl Mahaney, am I
Yeah.
pronouncing it right?
Yes,
So, and that's related to the survey that they're gonna be doing to all of the stores and stakeholders on 72nd, which it partially overlaps with the discussion on bike lane, but it's really everything that may happen or is being proposed for 72nd Street. So I just want to just point that out, that that's in process. And I know, Laura, you're gonna be part of, yeah, I mean, it looks like they did a lot of great research and they have a great list already.
Mhm.
So I don't know much more I can add to it, but I'm happy to help. And my only request is that the questions that are asked are as objective as possible.
Yeah,
Have you
so,
seen the survey? They're all very objective.
Yeah,
None of them are leading.
yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so I think, that's really where we are. with 72nd Street. And the only other item, and I think they were pretty, I don't know, they indicated this, we did bring up the cross block.
the mid-block crossing.
Mid-block crossing, and that was
They
not,
weren't real thrilled with
yeah,
that.
that was, that was,
DOT.
DOT was not,
They,
It did
they,
not
they
seem to be a
explained why
priority.
106th between Columbus and Amsterdam with two senior centers across the street from each other on a hill made sense, but this one makes less sense.
And
72nd between.
Why,
Columbus
what were
and-
their reasons?
yeah,
for
w's the
not-
reason? It's a very long block.
It was the
People are all-
least
It's the same length
productive
as,
part of our
but 106th Street, it's Columbus Amsterdam block.
For the whole hour.
There's Peter.
The problem that I see on that block all the time is actually there's a traffic flow problem for retailers. I've actually discussed this, where if you're on one side or the other, you either go and you cross the red light at your own peril, or you just don't do it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
my suggestion humbly was that if there is a mid-block crossing, that it's on request. You press the button. It's not necessarily timed out. It's
Wasn't
when,
there something about the retailers that they mentioned? I thought there was a specific reason about why they couldn't do it there.
They were a little vague about that, but they,
They did not equate it
they,
with 106th.
no, they surely did not.
So, and I think it might have been because that stretch is a commercial block versus.
which is exactly the reason
I
to do
know,
it.
I'm
Yeah.
just,
This does not mean
if
we can't
Colleen,
revisit
has
it.
Colleen
Yeah.
joined? Is she?
She's not in
one
the
of
not
group,
on.
no.
Okay.
It's not as though we can't revisit it.
Absolutely
It
not.
could be
Yeah, we
raised.
certainly can.
So just, we can quickly go through the
Peter,
rest,
do we
yeah.
want to have Peter
Well, is
comment?
Peter presenting on?
No, he
this?
just wants to make
No,
a
he has a
comment.
comment, I think, right?
He's been
Peter?
waiting.
Yeah, Peter.
Hi, thank you so much and really appreciate all that you're doing. I wanted to going back to the first discussion about places, uptown, 106th to 110th in particular, there are a number of senior centers, senior living situations. There's also a number of schools. So we've got kids going to school sometimes by themselves, and often at a very young age, at a surprisingly young age. And they're not much higher than the hood of a car, particularly, well, certainly not of an SUV. So I would love it if you could really focus on 106th and Amsterdam, 110th and Columbus, 106th and Manhattan. And then
106th.
Yeah.
Ken mentioned 106th in Amsterdam already.
I heard that, and I just want to reiterate how important. I've been present for a number of accidents. Not all of them deadly, but there have been deadly ones there. And they've been very disconcerting. I mean, people have lost their livelihood because of unable to move afterwards.
Peter,
You mentioned, I'm sorry, Peter, you mentioned 110th and what?
And Columbus, it's something that you guys have, or that the committee has addressed repeatedly with DOT. It's still an issue for people that come to that intersection and are not clear on what's going on and step out into a situation where the cars have the right of way, even though the pedestrians are in the crosswalk, but there are sitting ducks for a car that is bent on moving through them. So I guess I watch the kids going to school. There are crossing guards in certain locations that help considerably, but just like I said, 108th and Columbus, 107th Columbus.
Wait, that's like 5 now. So
Um,
what I was gonna ask you is if you could rank the top, like you've given us 4 or 5. Could you
Right.
tell us anecdotally what the top 3 in order of the top 3 are for you? If you had with it.
They're not all left turns.
I
And Peter, bear in mind, if you would, that we're focused on places where we're taking a left
yes,
at the
correct.
intersection presents an unbearable danger.
Right.
So where you're
The
crossing.
cars coming out of
Oncoming traffic.
Correct,
the
crossing.
cars
ongoing
coming
traffic.
out of 108th onto Columbus are crossing where kids are crossing. The cars coming off of Columbus on 107th are coming off of Columbus into a crosswalk that's heavily used by kids. There's 106th where they're coming either off of Amsterdam onto 106th going towards Broadway, or where they're coming off of 106th going on to Amsterdam, coming from Broadway. Those are both left-hand turns that are problematic and have caused problems. I'm sorry, what was my other one?
I
100
think
in
do a
Columbus,
site visit, we'll look at all
there's
of
a
them.
strange light that people are not familiar with how to handle that light.
Okay.
And I'm sorry about that. I just don't know what to do. Because it's something that unless you're familiar with that intersection, people make mistakes all the time and get caught in situations where they're dealing with vehicles making left-hand turns. And if I had to make a choice, I would agree with Ken that 106th in Amsterdam is the worst. But that's only because there's been a death there recently, whereas in all the others, they're a lot older, and either the kids or the people may have survived.
Okay, this is super helpful,
Thank you,
and
Peter.
we'll let you know when we're doing the tour of that general area, because obviously you need to.
And
be there for that.
Amsterdam changes to a 2-way at 110th Street.
Okay, so we're gonna go back to the.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
So just quickly to wrap this item up, so we talked about the mid-block issue on 72nd. We also talked about an issue that I know has been circulating to some of you today about 71st Street again, which is just the general safety, the bike corral in particular. They seem to be very proud of the of the corral that they've put in at the south of 70th Street, 70th and Amsterdam, I guess, right? Like,
Yeah, right
by the liquor store, and seem to think that that suffices. We very vocally said that it does not. I think we were pretty clear that we would strongly prefer, given our resolution and everything else, that we support them getting to work on what they said they were going to do, which was moving the bike corrals off of the McDonald's area and the pizza area and onto a corral that's in that area, on the actual sidewalk, or sorry, the curb space there. And we reiterated that. I don't think they said yes or no to it.
Correct.
But I think given
heard
the
stuff.
communication that went out today from 71st Street folks, they are not letting this go. And I think we will support them, given that we've done a resolution on that. And we will continue to urge DOT to get on the case on it.
In your meeting, did they discuss daylighting or loading zones?
So if you don't mind, we're gonna go through. the
Oh, I
other
thought you were
items.
done. That's what I said.
No, I'm just quickly going through the rest of them,
Okay.
so we'll just go through those quickly. We talked a little bit about e-bike regulation, that's ongoing. There is, for a future meeting, we'll bring it up in new business, but I think for a future meeting, we'd like to have city council come in. There is going to be legislation going through on e-bike regulation. We understand Gail's brought it up at full board, so we're working on that. And then just a general discussion of data, which I know Alex is probably of interest to you. They sort of have given us portals and they've sent us a couple links in the last 2 days, which we'll send around to the committee. Just where to go to get data. A lot of times we're looking for data to back up things we want to put in our resolutions for transportation related resolutions. So they have a whole team working on it and made us that connection during the meeting. And then again, just the logistics with them. If Colleen, I don't think anyone from DOT, please speak up or ping us if any of you are on this Zoom right now. But this being an exception, but every month there will be somebody from DOT at these meetings. And we will quarterly have a standing item on the agenda for them to speak to us. So anything else I missed? I mean, there were a lot of other small things. Daylighting. Okay, the loading zones was discussed. I know that's a big issue for you.
For a lot of people, actually.
I understand that, and they are aware that it's an important issue to you.
And they led us to believe more.
Yes, okay.
It's important to the board, we passed
It
it.
is important to the board, but they particularly know that it's something that comes up all the time on this board and that
So what they said.
they said they're working on it. And we said,
That's
thank
what
you.
they said for 5 years.
Okay, well, that's great. And they have made progress on, yes, they have. Okay,
They have a couple on West End.
they do. Okay, and that's more than none. So
They led us to believe that some were coming to
somewhere
Central
coming to
Park
Central
West.
West.
Really?
So, yes,
Okay.
okay, so,
Any timeline?
No, they didn't give that.
Fine, fine.
okay, so, look, we are building a very good relationship with DOT. We are, yeah, and we are taking them at their word when they tell us things, and we are taking it, we're starting with them on a good footing. We will hold them to the fire on these things and do the best we can, okay? So,
Well, and I do want to add, and I see you, Doug, that we also had to address issues that were given to us by other committee co-chairs, and there was a
Yes.
limited amount of time. So we had to kind of move quickly through each of the agenda items.
yes, and they had some things.
And they had things, but we did make clear that we plan to be back in their offices in 3 months with the next set of items. So we'll revisit daylighting and the other issues.
Yeah, and I know,
that they're
Andrew, you had said that daylighting was something that we didn't get to, that was important, so.
My question was, you said that they directed you to some, I guess, sites for data. I assume those are public sites?
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you could share that with the committee?
Yes.
We plan to.
Oh,
Yeah,
great.
Yeah,
Great.
that was what I said, so,
Yeah,
so that was basically, again, overall good meeting, I think we're kind of, yeah,
Did you talk about crosstown bike lanes at all?
we did not,
We did not.
other than 72nd. And that seems to be one that, at a minimum, I think they really want it to be a true crosstown west to east and not just be the part on the west side to get it done.
Because
I know that's not what you want to
Ward
hear.
8 preceded us with a crosstown bike lane resolution. So that,
oh, that's right.
and that's not, so they can't claim that as the reason. they're
No,
not-
I'm just saying that I think they would much rather put in a full bike lane across the whole stretch of 72nd
Mhm.
and have cooperation from CB8 to do that than to just do the west side piece of it. That was my.
All or
my-
nothing?
That's true.
Okay,
Okay.
that's, I'm just telling you what they said.
Yeah.
So,
I certainly think, I just put it down for the
Yeah.
number one thing on the agenda next time. we meet. I don't see why we can't talk about both things.
okay, so that was the DOT recap. And I think next on the agenda is Andrew giving an update on, nothing's been going on with the MTA in the last month.
Yeah, right. Okay. More and more people are using Omni, which is great, as the MetroCard will be phased out in this calendar year. I've helped some seniors load onto their new senior Omni cards. How you have to devote some money so it refills automatically and all of that. So far, it seems to be working. There are now Omni vending machines at the 72nd and 96th Street, 1, 2, 3 stations. So those 2 stations have them. They're coming everywhere, but those are the first 2 West Side stations to get them. There's a new pilot for people who are hard of hearing or deaf called Convo, which is very exciting. There's a QR code like the one you see when we sign in here. If you launch that and you're deaf or hard of hearing, you will be directed with sign language to an MTA employee who will then give you all the information you need.
Wow.
Yeah, this is very exciting.
I was just in a meeting 3 hours ago with somebody who is very excited about using that, who is deaf.
Yeah, it's great.
It was, and uses transit all the time.
You get a live interpreter and you can chat with an MTA employee that can answer any of your questions. Right now, the pilot is at the following location. It's a lot for the pilot to start at: 161st Street Yankee Stadium Station, Atlantic Avenue Barclay Center, Times Square, Jackson Heights Roosevelt, in Queens, St. George on the Staten Island Railway, Atlantic Terminal, Brooklyn, Babylon on the Long Island, Grand Central Madison on the Long Island, Jamaica, Penn Station, Ronkonkoma, Grand Central, White Plains, and mobile sales vehicles. All of those places will be ready with the Convo pilot. And you can just touch the QR code and be directed to an MTA employee. Obviously, if you're at one of these vans, that's even great. And as well as, of course, the MTA's location downtown at 3 Stone Street, where all of their card and things of that nature are around the corner from 2 Broadway, which is their location. Some of the infrastructure projects they're working on are amazing. You know that they've stopped A-train service to the Rockaways while they rebuild the South Channel Bridge and the Hamels Y on the Rockaway Peninsula. That's W-Y-E-Y. That's where the Far Rockaway and Rockaway Park branches meet on an elevated viaduct. They are rebuilding all of that. They are on schedule for the before Memorial Day launch of service back to the beach. It's amazing. They showed us pictures of the bridge, the South Channel Bridge, and they've had to open it so that oil deliveries and fuel deliveries to Kennedy Airport can go up through Jamaica Bay, because this bridge is right in the way of that. So it will be easily opened without upsetting the service when this is all done. The Hamels Y is a viaduct, which I hope will allow for Far Rockaway to Rockaway Park service. They have that service running right now during this shutdown. And a lot of people requested that all the time. I don't know that that's going to happen, but it's so logical. But we'll see what happens with that. So that's going well. If you've ridden the Long Island Railroad into Jamaica from east, you realize how it creeps in and creeps out. They are working on the Hall interlocking, which is in the vicinity of the old Union Hall Street Long Island Railroad station. When that is done and that work is progressing nicely, trains, they'll probably be altering all the schedules for trains coming through Jamaica, because that has really slowed down service through Jamaica. So that's really exciting for Long Island Railroad users. There's a lot of work going on the Penn Access stations, which is the new Long Island Railroad. Well, it's Metro North that will serve Penn Station via the Hellgate Bridge. And there are 4 new Bronx stations, as you know: Co-op City, Parkchester, Morris Park, and Hunts Point. And there are little bridges that go over little rivers in the Bronx, and those bridges are now being rebuilt. Who knew that Amtrak wouldn't do it, but we are now doing it so that Metro North's trains will be able to traverse those tracks without any problems. And a very exciting thing, on February 12th, a baby girl was born on a W train. And all of both MTA and regular riders helped deliver the child, sever the umbilical cord and everything. I hope the girl's name is Wendy or something else that begins with W, because that's very exciting. It was great to see New Yorkers all come together.
And she rode for free.
Yeah. Because there has been a 36.4% reduction in subway crime. That is continuing. Police seem to be everywhere. Fare evasion continues, however, and we are awaiting the new turnstiles. Some of that turnstile funding is coming from the 25 to 29 capital program, which, as you have heard, is not yet funded. It needs to be funded. There is so much state of good repair work in that. You've heard about the electrical breakdown in Brooklyn that tied up passengers. Those kinds of old control rooms and electrical substations are all over the system. We need to update the system. We're so lucky to have the system, but we must take care of it, obviously. And congestion pricing and the 25 to 29 capital program are going to do just that. The Queens bus redesign was passed by the board, and the first part of it will launch on June 29th. Some people are still upset with some of the changes that are going to be made, and I specifically asked during the meeting if once these are in place, can tinkering still take place? And I was told absolutely, nothing is dead. It can't be tinkered with. The second part of it will take place August 31st. There are some people that are very happy with some of the changes and services, and they're going to be actually having express and local bus service that will take you to the nearest train, whether it's a Long Island Railroad station or a subway station. And we have pushed really hard for a weekly Omni card that will, on the railroad, that will allow you to transfer for free to subway and bus. Once you have all of those things paid for, you're not going to drive. It's just a no-brainer. And we're looking at that. We brought that up to the state Senate and the state Assembly, and the Senate seems okay with it. We'll see what the Assembly does. Some of us had a meeting with Linda Rosenthal to explain to her about all of these things, and she seems good with it. So we'll see how that happens. You may recall the name Tom Prendergast. He used to be chairman of the MTA. Then he went to ACOM. He is now the head of the Gateway program, which is building the new tunnels under the Hudson River. Hopefully the feds will not try to take that money away, which was allocated already. But that will really improve service between New York, New Jersey, and all of Amtrak services up and down, assuming that Sean Duffy doesn't try to kill Amtrak. Elon Musk has said that the Postal Service and Amtrak need to be turned over to for-profit, whereas railroad service throughout the world loses money, and that's why governments are doing it around the world. And if we can't learn that from the rest of the world, something's wrong with us. But in any event, Tom is a great guy, and I think he will get a lot of work done. There are 20,000 workers now working on the Gateway program. That is going to balloon to 100,000 when all the contracts are awarded. So it's major work. John Chiarello is the new head of TWU Local 100.
Was that John Sam? Was that Samuelson before?
No. Sean Samuelson said this
He's
is
the head of the.
Yeah, he's the head of the nationwide. But his quote, but he wants everyone to remember is, "We will take no crap from management." That is how he was sworn in. So, that's an interesting start. Metro North is going to run the first in the nation battery and electric powered locomotives, and they will start it on the new Penn Access trains from Stamford or New Rochelle or New Haven through the new 4 stations in the Bronx into Penn Station. So that's very exciting. If it works there, and they did not yet tell us how long a distance the battery operated portion will derive, but that can be obviously used on the Long Island Railroad also, because the Oyster Bay and the Port Jefferson branches have a lot of riders, but it's diesel. After a certain point, the electricity stops. If we can get this to work on those branches, that would be amazing. You would have a 1-seat ride, so you wouldn't have to change at Huntington, or Oyster or Hicks or Mineola on the Oyster Bay. It'll be very exciting if we can get that. Kathy Rinaldi is retiring this month as president of the Metro North Railroad. She's been that for 7 years. She was dual president of Metro North and Long Island for a while. I don't know how she slept at night. One of those railroads is enough to keep you up, but both amazing. And she was a general counsel for the MTA for a while. So she will be missed for sure.
Is she retiring?
She's retiring from this, but nobody believes she's going to retire.
Yeah.
She's going to be a consultant somewhere, I'm sure. She's sharp.
Andrew, do you want to talk about those who are there, our Mr. Critchlow and our
bus ride?
Our bus ride.
Oh, yeah, I'll get to
That's
that.
okay, good.
I'll get
I just
to
want to
that.
make
Yeah,
sure
absolutely.
we spend some time on
Sure. some great capital plan initiatives. Three of us rider reps on the MTA board got a chance to walk through all kinds of dust and holes in the wall and crap while they were building this new connection from the number 7 line at Grand Central up to the 4, 5, and 6 at Grand Central and the shuttle. It's amazing to see the passageway that was built and the spacious new dual escalator, and it's just beautiful. If you're in Grand Central on the 7 and you want to get to the 4, 5, 6 or shuttle, try the new stairway. It's the first one after going west after the 3rd Avenue.
How deep is it?
It's pretty deep.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's what they had to move to get this done is just amazing. It's beautiful. And something that we are looking at as a hopefully the way they will do it from now on is the Woodhaven Boulevard station on the JZ line. They made it accessible, but this is the first time they've done elevators from the street right to the platform. You don't have to switch at a mezzanine, which is great for people with disabilities. It's great for not having less things that can go wrong. Just, one elevator up and one elevator down on both sides. It's just wonderful. We hope that they will be doing this on other stations, and they claim this is the way they now want to do it. They saved money, they did it more quickly, and they are now packaging accessibility stations in groups and saving money and speeding up things at the same time. So it's great. If you're a part of Fair Fares, if you have a income below a certain level and you sign up for Fair Fares, you will now automatically be given an Omni Fair Fare card, no more Metro card. So Omni is now expanded to Fair Fares as well as Metro card. And the last thing I would say before I get to what Elizabeth was bringing up, they have a new pilot going on now because there's been track defects in certain places. They now have something called Track Inspect. It's a pilot program where they use Google Pixel phones that can ping and detect where there are problems on the tracks. This is being tested on various lines and it's proven accurate. So that's really exciting. They can detect vibrations that are going to cause a problem on the tracks, bolts that might be loose, sidings. I mean, it's just amazing. It's called Track Inspect Pilot, and we're going to wait to see more, but we've gotten a little bit of news about it, and it's really exciting. You may have heard or seen on the news that R211 open gangway cars are now running on the G line. They are already CBTC ready. So it's great that the 3rd lines to get CBTC, the G line from Court Square down to Church Avenue, is getting trains that can accommodate CBTC. There are now 2 trains of that and they're getting another 2 in about a month. So that's really exciting. And the last thing I'll say is that several of us got a ride along that Assembly Member Rosenthal organized to ride with the president of New York City Transit, Demetrius Critchlow, on the M104 bus. We did it a few days ago. He rode with us. He answered questions, did a lot of photo ops. And,
offered to do another one?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, a different line.
Yeah. It was really great. He knows obviously what's going on. He was senior VP of subways. He's been in New York City Transit for a long time. He knows all the players. He knows what to look for. We made sure that signage was correct because on many buses it is not, which affects transfers. I am calling almost every day somebody that then calls the bus driver and changes the signs, which is
I've
great.
been there when he's done that.
I know.
Once I was having coffee with Andrew and he jumped up and ran out
I had
to
to report
examine
it.
the sign and then he
And
called the
unfortunately,
MTA.
I'm also reporting incorrect announcements during weekend GOs. There have been several weekends where the 7 is not running to Manhattan. And yet when you get to 42nd Street or Times Square, they use the automated announcement that says one of the transfers is the 7. And the W is also substituting when the 7 isn't running, and they're not mentioning that. So I've given several different, and they're having a whole new training session because they have scripts. They're supposed to use the scripts.
Yeah.
When Demetrius and when Andy Byford was here and we had all these issues, he developed the scripts for the accuracy of your information should not rely on the luck of which conductor you get. They should all be using the scripts.
Do he write "Stand clear of the closing doors, please"? That's a hell of a script.
Yeah.
He said that he was the head of New York City Transit for everyone he led the tour, which was.
He did. He is the head of New
I
York City
tried to
Transit.
share
Yeah.
some photos while Andrew was speaking, which is why I was looking down at my phone, but we'll send them around. But it was really fun,
It
actually.
was.
No, he's really. The point was the ride along was to detect problems that people have with either the bus operator not announcing signs, the signage being incorrect, the
The bunching.
the
bus
bunching, the countdown, if
And-
the stop has the countdown clocks at that stop, if they're working and if they're accurate.
And also to show, he did say that congestion pricing has resulted in the need for actual more buses along the bus routes along the Upper West Side in particular, because they're going
Yeah,
3
in fact,
times because of the lower traffic.
they're going
The
to be
buses are going-
reevaluating all the bus
They're bunching,
schedules because
exactly.
the buses are making better time.
Yeah. So that's,
Yeah.
I actually said to him, I was like, this is the kind of news that you need to get out there about congestion
Yes.
pricing. Like that to me is a
Express
win-win
buses
for everyone, right?
especially.
Like,
Express buses that are coming from Staten Island, either through New Jersey or
and they have the
through
exact
Brooklyn,
data. It's incredible. Like,
are making much
Oh, yeah.
better time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, look up.
there's some pictures.
Yeah.
You know, I thought he was incredibly receptive and.
Thank you, Jessie.
Yeah, thanks.
He's wonderful.
And yeah, I mean, he answered so many questions and he really took notes. I mean, when
Yeah.
someone was talking, he was jotting it
yeah, I
down
thought
in
he
his
was like
notes.
looking at his phone, like he
No, he
wasn't
was, like,
paying attention, and he was like.
Right, he was
taking
jotting
notes.
down everything that people said, which I really was very impressed by.
Mhm, mhm.
No, it's
So
good
we got,
having
it
him
was,
in
it
charge.
was good. It was a good, and I think he had done one before with Linda, when Andy Byford was.
Yeah, we did it with Andy Byford,
Yeah.
5
5 or
several
6
years
years
ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a good thing that they're coming. I mean, hopefully that opens again.
He
another
has
door
great
with the-
institutional knowledge and institutional
And he said
memory.
we go through Andrew, we should go through Andrew
Yeah.
whenever we have a question. So for members of
And
the public who are here.
the turnout was also really
It's good.
terrific,
Yeah.
not just our community board, which was
We had
well
Board 4
represented.
and we had people from block
Block
associations.
associations, it was nice to see so much interest in public transportation.
Thank you,
Anytime.
as usual. Okay.
As always. Oh, I actually had a question about something you
Sure.
said. What's the response been, on the G line from the public?
As to the new cars?
Yes, has there been, is there any?
CBTC is not actually in effect yet, which will mean more frequent service with trains running more safely closer together. They haven't turned that on yet because it shares tracks with the F line. And that's largely done on the Culver end
Right,
and on the Queens Boulevard East and Queens Boulevard West, but not at all along Sixth Avenue in Manhattan yet,
okay.
which is what we're waiting to have happen. But they could conceivably turn it on, say, between Hoyt Skirmerhorn and Court Square.
Uh-huh,
They haven't done that yet, but people seem to like the new cars. You can walk through.
people like to walk through.
Yeah, they like to walk through. Of course, if somebody smells in one car, that smell will also walk through. So there's good and bad to the open gangway cars. But one of the other benefits of the open gangway
Yeah.
cars is nobody can climb up to the roof and subway surf.
Subway store.
And that is deadly.
Yeah.
I
Thank
just saw a story in New York One News this morning about the protective barriers.
More are
And-
coming.
Yeah, and they were saying, which I was happy to hear, that they were being resourceful in using metal and contractors they already have in place to save money.
Mhm.
They were showing some of the welding going on.
Yeah, no. The contractors that they're doing work on in a various place can, that while they're there, can put in the barriers if it's a station that can take the barriers. Not every station can take them. Many elevated stations cannot, but underground certainly
Thank
can.
you, Andrew. That was so great.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Couple more items. I guess public members are up next. We wanted just.
We don't have much to say about it.
Yeah. I mean,
Except that we're not.
just so
taking
everyone
it
knows.
with them. But I think it is
Yeah.
worth saying that I think it was a terrific discussion in committee about public members. I know I, for one, came in with a very clear idea of what I thought we should do on public members, and I walked out of here with a different idea because of the valuable suggestions made by members of this committee.
Which was in closed session, so.
It was in closed session, but it's just really good to have a vibrant, open, considered conversation where we listen to one another and come together as a committee around ideas.
So it's now public, so everyone can know that
It's
we,
now public.
CB7 has elected to not, this year has
On
elected
this
to not.
This committee.
On
A few
transportation.
other committees as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is
that
not,
could
this
be-
is not a discussion item for tonight. We just want
No,
to.
it's not a discussion.
Yeah.
It's not a discussion item, and we
When
can't.
we- I think we should have a discussion about this, because
Well, we
Give us
can't because
the-
we're
the
not in
sense,
executive
then
session.
let's go into executive
Well, no, I
session.
just have a question.
But
We're
this-
Another
having a-
discussion. Why are we having a public member? Was there a reason?
I think the understanding was that we had many different people, we had many different opinions. We did not feel that the needs, and again, this was a decision that was made by the board chair
Mhm,
with our
right.
consultation.
Right,
And we gathered the consultation we got from
From all
the
of you.
members of this committee.
right.
And we're not going to discuss the details of those discussions because we do have members of the public who are here tonight. And we relayed to the board chair what we learned from our discussion
Mhm,
in closed sessions.
Right,
And made a recommendation that we felt like, from our perspective, we felt like the needs that we needed for it to add to what we have for this committee right now,
at this time.
at this time, for this year, could wait another year. We're going to see how it goes this year with this makeup of the committee, with the transition that is likely to occur, with new members coming on this spring. And then there will be another year coming up before you know it, will there be a chance, depending on the dynamics and how this committee is working together to appoint a
Because
public
it was
member.
my sense of our discussion that most of the committee was in favor. There was some disagreement about who should be named, but most people were in favor of naming someone.
And I think like we said, some of us came into the meeting with one thinking and walked out after another. I don't think it's appropriate for us without going into a closed session, executive session for us to discuss.
Consider that, because
Well,
This
we
is an
can, we
important-
can schedule an executive session for the next meeting. Would you like to do that, Karen?
we have time now.
All right, why don't we put that at the end when we
Yeah,
get to
put it
new
at the end.
business?
Yes.
Okay, good,
I got to clear the room.
yes,
Clear the room.
okay. Prepare yourself.
Okay, so we just have one more brief item, which we may need Alex's
I think
help with.
4-year-olds can
Yes,
listen.
But again, this is not something that's going to change.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
Okay, so, Paul, do we want to deal with the news racks,
Yes.
Alex? Why don't you
Sure, I
bring us up? So Parks and Environment had sent out a notice asking for assistance on their news racks project. And I was gonna try and hobble my way through explaining what that is, but then I realized we have an expert right at the table.
Yeah, so we're conducting this effort to talk about news racks. So these are the news racks we're discussing. Can you see them there? So these are the examples that Natasha sent me. She's been out there pounding the pavement. And so you can see they're all over and they have an interesting and varied history going back a very long time, paid to unpaid. And they in fact have some free speech kind of items baked into there, which is kind of interesting if you want to read the email.
Yeah.
But the DOT is tasked with kind of the regulation of the news racks. And at one time, you can see in open data that they actually did in fact do some kinds of inspection, but that stopped a long time ago. 2023 is the last time it did anything in our district. I think similarly, it's just a lack of priority, I would say, maybe. So I've been in touch with the DOT, and we worked out a plan via FOIL request that we would specify all the current locations of news racks. And then they promised to then, inspect. There was some kind of legislation that was supposed to happen that actually wouldn't have actually helped. All it required was that someone put a contact information on the news rack, which again, doesn't do anything. But again, this is return unsigned to the mayor and it's not gonna happen anyway. So, yeah, the effort is, if you're willing, look to Natasha's email and help us find other examples of the news racks in our district. I would say lastly, we talked to a few community business improvement districts downtown. And what they told us off the record is, yeah, DOT doesn't do anything. And what we just do is we put a trash bag over them and we throw their news racks away. Which is totally not allowed, but they say otherwise,
I had to ask DOT.
they say if you ask.
Executive session.
They said if you ask DOT, they'll say, we're gonna do something, and they will never do anything. And so our recommendation is you just take trash bags and you throw them in the trash bag and then you throw the items away.
This is for abandoned.
Well, the companies, if you contact them, will say that they're not abandoned, and some of them do get free newspapers put in there. But, the regulation specifies it cannot be vandalized, cannot be 15 feet of a corner, which are all in the corners, cannot be near a bus stop. So like, I don't know what you would call it. I mean, they're not, most of them are not in use, but the company, if you ask them, will say, you know, this is part of our property.
So, but our job is the inventory.
Our job is the inventory and to say to DOT who claims that they will inspect, although we have our doubts about that.
Are we saying collectively that we don't want them anymore? I mean, because I absolutely acknowledge they're a mess and they fall over and there's just so many problems with them, but I do pick up, you know, the West Side Spirit with various, you know, magazines in there, and I do like that aspect of it, but what are we saying collectively about it besides inventory?
Wow. The effort is just to inventory and have them be in compliance. So for instance, covered in graffiti and stuff is not currently in compliance.
Right.
But we're not saying anything about should they or should they not exist. There's a First Amendment right for them to exist.
Right.
I'm also curious, I know Especialito is another one of the publications, and I don't know how widely that is it could be very widely read, more so than some of the other publications. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's any information on that kind of stuff, but is there potentially a solution in like, I mean, it's like Shakespeare and Company and stores, like having the West Side, like, well, maybe not.
Not like a center one, but the other two.
And people are stashing things in these things too, you know, that people are hiding things in them.
Right. And putting,
Sometimes
their coffee cups
terrible
and,
things.
yeah.
No, I once,
Refuse.
there was one that had a gun in it.
Yeah, oh, okay.
One that Natasha sent me, which I told her to talk to you about, is there's also one still in the subway stations bolted down, but they obviously no longer AM New York being distributed there. I told her to ask you about cutting those off.
Yeah.
Oh, please, go.
Okay,
Hi, Leora.
I have been on this for 2 weeks. Every time I turn around, there's another box.
Oh, can you tell us
Those are
your
good
name?
pictures.
Leora.
Every picture that I've taken from 72nd Street to like 76 are all vandalized.
Yeah.
The homeless keep their stuff in there.
Yeah.
You cannot touch them. The ones that were in front of Chase Bank, 260, I called Gail, okay? The next day I went out, 2 were standing by the garbage. But unfortunately, someone came along from, I don't know what, and made 4 orange little circles on the ground next to these 2, and then put a metal thing up like, oh, one new one is coming. We don't need that. We don't need, you want to put them someplace? 2 have been put at the 72nd Street station with the 2 and 3s on both sides. One is AM New York and one is the Metro paper. Put the rest there. Or go to Fifth Avenue, look at what they did. They have a beautiful, metal thing and put it at the train station, unless you're redoing that park. That's another conversation. I was here last time. I sat there since
Yes,
I came to this meeting.
I remember, and you're not
Okay,
Leora.
that
There's a
park,
woman-
I'm not gonna say it's
Yeah.
all homeless. It's for the homeless.
Okay, do you mind telling us your name?
Nadine.
Nadine, thank you,
Right.
Nadine.
That was my
I
mistake.
have made numerous complaints to the DOT. I spoke to some lovely woman today who took all the complaints, which happened to be 7. I have all the pictures. It's a disgrace. I'm on 72nd Street. Do we really need them on 72nd Street where you can't even walk down the street because somebody approved these Wi-Fi kiosks and we have a permanent homeless person sitting in front of 53 West 72. I mean, it's just.
Do the publications
there's
get
no-
permission from DOT for a specific location for these, or do they just put them
When
out?
They can
first
put
go
them
in.
wherever
They
they
can
want.
put, it's a First Amendment
They can put
protected
it-
right, yeah.
They can put them wherever they want. They don't get permission from DOT, but within 3 months of putting it there, they must send in a letter saying that they put something there.
And
This
is there
is-
anything in that says they must keep them in
Yeah,
certain
must keep
condition.
them in good condition, and the DOT will inspect
That's
if
matters,
they don't.
that's what they're doing.
So
on
this
Thursday.
I think.
I spoke to the parenting magazine company. I called them. I said, look, there's no nannies walking here. Go to the JCC on that corner. Go to that place on 79th Street that's new. This is a eyesore. This is nice.
Yeah, so this is,
And the ones on Fifth Avenue are nice, but
yeah,
honestly,
Madison,
I
right?
think that this is old. It's old
Yeah.
technology
Check the
already.
bid.
I don't think anyone's sticking their hands in
so this is
there.
what the Madison Avenue bid, they
The
actually
bid,
installed it
yeah.
20 years ago, they acquired hundreds of thousands of dollars that they had custom made. And they, you know, at the
Yes,
time, it was
Madison
mostly
Avenue.
paid, New York Times and others. And
Yeah.
they do, you know, say if there's a, you know, a provider who wants to use it, they can, but they say mostly no. No one uses them, but yeah, these are obviously like a beautiful example of, but again, hundreds of thousands of dollars, they said, to install.
They
So
gotta
definitely
go.
not, yeah.
And have you spoken to the bids?
Yeah, we
Yes,
spoke to the bids.
And what someone described earlier about homeless putting things in, these can be a health hazard as well. If you reach in and grab something, you don't know what else is in that thing.
No, look, I have all these pictures of them opened. I opened them. Nobody's going in there. It's a garbage dump
They're using
between the
it
graffiti
As a dog
people
owner, people are
with
using
their
it.
graffiti
Yeah.
markers.
No, no,
walking
not to
around,
first, but
or
to,
the sticker
if they don't
people.
have a bag.
It's just
Use it in
a,
newspaper.
it's just a disgrace. And especially since 72nd Street is really the gateway to Central Park. You have to, I'm ashamed that these things are on the street. And all of a sudden, I'm like, where did this come from? All of a sudden, they appear in front of we have Chase Manhattan that had 4, now they have 2, but one is coming. Someone drilled holes in the sidewalk there. I don't know who. I reported it today to 311 again, all of them. Because nothing's been doing, this has been going on for about 3 weeks with me.
Yeah, so
And I am
anyway,
pissed off.
Natasha sent out an email, so if anyone wants to help, you know, send your pictures to me and,
Fine.
Andrew,
yeah,
did you
it
have a
goes to the
question?
DOT.
That's fine.
Nadine just mentioned somebody's drilling a hole.
Are you
Like
allowed?
someone
He's
drilled a
No,
hole.
they drew
Most of them are
circles
not,
to
but-
Yeah,
prepare to
there's
drill.
there's
They're
nothing on the
loose.
sidewalk.
You need a permit from a DOT to
So
drill
I
a
just
hole on
want
the
to
sidewalk.
clarify, before we leave this topic. What you're asking us to do at this point is simply identify these news boxes with photographs to send to your committee so that we can inventory and begin the process, whatever that process may be,
Yeah.
to move
Are
forward.
you keeping a running list in Drive?
Yeah, we have a list. Natasha sent out, you can look at Natasha.
So it is the Drive thing that she sent.
Email.
And you want the
Oh, I
location,
see.
the name of the publication, and whether the thing has got
The spreadsheet.
any papers in it or it's empty.
We didn't ask for any of that. You just have to take a picture
Oh.
or tell us where it is.
Okay.
If you want to
Okay,
put it.
and then you all will
Yeah.
think about next steps.
I just want to add to this.
Go
We have a
ahead.
similar problem with abandoned relay boxes that are relics from the postal service that are also vandalized, damaged, ajar.
The green ones?
They're blackish green, they're dark. There's several on West 72nd Street. It's sidewalk clutter.
That's federal, yeah, that's federal
That's
property.
So while we're on the same topic,
Yeah.
if we could piggyback the abandoned relay boxes. We've tried to get them removed. They're not used, but they remain.
We have big newsstands that are abandoned too, plenty of them.
We also have newsstands that are being used as a cell phone shop illegally. Right
A
over.
lot of new business coming up here at the
Yeah.
end of this meeting.
All right.
Okay, so I think that does it for the agenda items, and I think I know, Jamie, I have like three quick new business things, and then I know we
Okay.
have our executive session, but do you have some too?
I have no new business
Okay,
items.
so they're just quick things to talk about primarily for maybe next month's meeting.
Mhm.
One was a good point that Howard raised earlier this week about what's going on in Central Park with the new design. Just wanted to make sure, because I had to relearn this, that this is a conservancy undertaking. DOT is doing the implementation of it. But the conservancy is really the mastermind behind this, reminding everyone that they did come to a joint meeting. Jamie has pointed it out. We've also asked Jessie, and Jessie, I think if you're here, hopefully we're able to do this, but we're gonna put prominently on the homepage of the website, because it's been all over the news this week, a sort of messaging that's to the equivalent of like, hey, you've probably noticed this, here's the latest, and there's a DOT press release that goes through sort of exactly what it means, all the information that's up to date, that hopefully Howard will answer your questions, other people's questions. It'll be on the homepage rather than the Parks Committee site. So if you talk to anyone who asks you about it, direct them to the homepage of the website, and the information should be there. That's just wanted to close the loop on that. I think it could be something that, you know, I think we've all.
Quick question on, it's gonna be in the transportation?
No, on the homepage of the entire CV7 site.
Okay.
So we can talk about it after the meeting, but that's one thing that we're trying to get
Okay.
updated.
But I just say that, you remember at that meeting, they're very vague about exactly what they're gonna do, particularly with the lights.
Right.
They said they're gonna get rid of some of the lights, they're gonna make them more bike appropriate for cyclists, but what they're actually gonna do, which ones they're gonna get rid of, which ones they're gonna keep. I think the only thing we can say for sure that they're gonna be doing is they're repaving the drive.
Exactly.
And they're gonna make 2 bike lanes rather than 1.
And it's starting on Monday.
And it's starting, right.
So that's why
the
we
only
wanted
thing
to
we know.
like make sure that the
That's the only
public.
thing we know for sure.
Yeah,
The
well,
rest of it
a lot of
is-
people don't know when it's like
The rest of it
exactly.
is kind of trust us.
Yeah, and the press release they sent out is the most accurate piece of information we have. And that's what we're gonna just make sure the community has equal information to all of us about that in that press release. And then they have been amenable, I think, in the future. They came to the meeting in December to talk about this. They're open to doing an update. We'll do another joint meeting to see how the progress is going whenever we would like. And that sort of leads into my second thing about timing for meetings. Is that sufficient for folks? I mean.
Yeah, I think they should have told us specifically what they're going to do well in advance, but.
They told us.
I, for one, thought their presentation at the joint committee meeting was thorough, extremely helpful, and I thought fairly specific. And there was an opportunity for Q&A, and I was very pleased with it. But
I
we
agree,
can
there was a
have-
lot of specificity there, but we don't know what they're doing this month. It's not clear.
Mhm.
They talked about all these
they're
things that they're
doing the
going.
lower loop.
But what, there's a lot there. I don't think they're doing everything. I don't know.
Also, how are they defining the lower loop? I think it goes up to the 90s. I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, and I
yes,
think
that's
it's
correct.
I think it's, does anyone have the press release in front of them from the DOT? I think they were fairly specific in the press release.
It was 96 on the west side and 90th on the east.
Yeah, so our point is just that's
Wow,
the
that's a
information
big
we
area.
have. If we would like to get the Parks Department to come,
Yes, we
or,
can
and the
do that.
Conservancy to come to the April meeting or to the May meeting and tell us what the schedule is, if there's been, I think to a certain degree, they're probably, not making it up as they go along. They certainly are not doing that, but they have a plan. But I think there could be changes to that. So maybe it would be good. Would you guys like to have them come to a future meeting to tell us?
As a joint parks and
Yeah.
transportation.
To provide a quarterly update? Okay, so it'll either be on our night or they're on the Parks Committee night. So that was one thing. Along the lines of timing for things, this is relevant to you in particular, Mr. Alexander, about the street renamings. So, and Jessie, this is also a question for you. I know in the resolution that we passed, we agreed to do the 2 times a year for consideration. Given that we're going to implement that, we now need to think about which 2 times during the year we want to do that. So do you have thoughts on this?
Not off the top of my head. I recall that when we had discussed it, part of what we wanted to make sure we were doing was syncing up with the city council's calendar.
Exactly.
And I think part of what we had implemented as well was revised criteria. And so I think it depends in part on which applications are pending and when and for how long. But I think we'd want to look at those 2 things, and then in discussing with the staff, we'd be able to figure out what the appropriate.
And
I had a brief conversation with Jessie about this, and I don't want to steal Jessie's thunder, but I believe the reason the twice a year is how often city council takes it up.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sorry about Jessie.
So basically, yeah, it's taken up twice a year. So in transportation's case, your agenda usually is like really packed. So it didn't make sense for us to view some of those applications at the moment, and that's why we cluttered them until your agenda kind of like cleaned up a little bit. So I know that you guys have it twice a year, but let's just say, for instance, like you're having a slow month. It would be strategic to, if we have some, that we could put them in there. But to implement specifically like a day, and then let's say something else is going on that needs more attention, I think you're making it more difficult for yourself. That's just my opinion. However you want to handle it, I'm okay with it. As of right now, I haven't received any. So we don't have any pending or anyone waiting. We might, yeah, we don't have any. None has come in. Usually as it's getting closer, we'll get like the council members that kind of like push some people, not push, like encourage some people from the community to say something. Like I do know that we have one that's like, they haven't submitted some of the stuff that which I spoke to Doug on McCourt. That one just waiting for information to come in. But other than something that's been finalized and ready to move forward, I don't have anything on my plate right now.
Okay, and so you're saying, I guess, just to close the loop on this, as more scattershot, like when we have a slow meeting, I mean, I think for the committee, that's fine, but for somebody who wants to bring forward a street renaming, do we just sort of tell them, we'll tell, don't come, like, get your signatures ready and we'll tell you when it's like.
No, so basically they reach out to me or they reach out to the general mail. What I do is basically I process, I work with them to make sure that they have everything in, right?
Once it works for you, whatever works easiest for you, like.
Yeah, so once I have everything in, what I've been doing, I have, if you see the transportation, there's a Google Doc that has secondary street renaming, and I have it set up so it has, pending and completed. So then you guys are aware of at what stage they are in. So let's say if you're building your agenda, you look at that file, who's ready to move forward or not. But basically what I tell them is that once I have all the items, I do alert the co-chairs, and then you guys let me know when you guys are ready to move forward. So I'll notify them 2 weeks prior to the meeting to get the ball rolling for the postings and have everything set.
Okay, and that comports with what your sort of grand vision was for all this. Okay, great. Yes. Everyone's good with that? We can.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. The applicant is the McCourt family from Malachi McCourt.
Yeah.
And that was actually put into motion. In fact, Gail Brewer made a very public announcement that she wants a secondary street naming in Malachi McCourt's name. For those of you who don't know, is Frank McCourt's brother. Is a real, I just personally say, I think in terms of criteria on contributions locally and beyond, he qualifies 10 times over. But that's something that I know the family is working to comply with our revised criteria from, for example, from 100 signatures to 300, and with so the family's working on it. I believe it's 93rd and West End Avenue, but I'm not exactly sure the side. I think that's where they're focused, but I haven't confirmed that.
I used to listen to his radio show.
Oh, he was,
Yeah.
I went to school with his son, elementary school, junior high school, but his memorial, which was at Symphony Space, was mind-blowing. I didn't realize all the things that he had done for the LGBT community, for the Irish Americans, like, wow. So, yeah.
For good discussion when we see presented. The only other really quick thing, I mentioned it earlier, just the e-bike discussion. As of now, I think Jamie and I are thinking about adding that to the April agenda, given that there is legislation moving through the city council. We'd like to be like as in front of it to the extent that we can be, rather than it coming to us after the fact. So that's just a thing to think about. If any of you guys hear anything about it, we've had limited success in reaching our elected official outreach on this front, although Gail's mentioned it publicly, but hopefully we'll get some answers from them.
Sego was mentioned as well.
Okay, but it's city council legislation.
Yeah.
It's been in the news, but we've been on top, we've been trying to stay on top of it.
This is to ban them from the parks?
It's just to regulating and licensing of e-bikes.
So Jessie has your hands up.
Thank you. I just want to mention real quick with the secondary street naming. some people have made requests and it'll stay dormant, like sitting there for over a year. So it's not like the request comes in and boom, it's done. So I just want you to be mindful about that some applicants will take some time, because even though that they've made the request, now they got to put in the work and make sure it's completed. And for some people, they could get it done in less than a month, 2 weeks. And there's people that will drag it and it will take a lot longer. So I just want you to be mindful of the fact that we've gotten a request doesn't mean that they're ready to move forward.
Right, okay.
Okay.
We just want to make sure that they're able to get their stuff in due time to be able, that it's not like all of a sudden we like sort of put on them, hey, we're meeting to talk about street renamings next month,
No,
make sure you get your stuff
they're
done.
basically, when I reach out, I let them know what the city council deadline is, as well as when your upcoming meetings are, so they could aim to be ready for those dates.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. Any other new business or do you?
I was looking at Gail's e-bike.
Yeah.
I have no new business other than what Kim
I have
wants to
one.
discuss.
So do you have something first?
No, Ken reminded me, I said it a million times, loading zones. And there's still, we had a resolution, what was it, 4 years ago? And there are still 0 loading zones within a half-mile radius of my apartment. And I just think it's appalling, because there's literally no way for Amazon, Fresh Direct, and all these companies to do their business legally. It's just unfair to everyone, if you think about it.
Well, I have a piggybacker on this, which is maybe not for April, but soon. And we did try to do this a few years ago, and it kind of got derailed. But I think buildings over a certain size, residential buildings, 50 units or 80 units, something like that, should at least have the option to, if they want a loading zone, they get it. Or no standing zone, or whatever it is, where they can have people pull in briefly and drop somebody off or deliver packages or whatever. To me, that, in this era where everything is getting delivered, we need to change the streets to accommodate that and reflect this new reality. This is one small way.
Yeah, that is something that came up during the DOT meeting, was just the thinking about how the streetscape has evolved.
Yeah.
And even in the last 5 years, just before COVID, even before COVID, but certainly during COVID, when people just started ordering. And it is the future, and it is something that's going to require
We've had some buildings
infrastructure
come to
changes.
us,
Yeah.
and they've been rejected.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah, I think sentiment
get
is moving.
institutionalized.
I think sentiment is moving more in that direction.
So I think we should.
Time for a refresh. Yeah.
I also think, and this is, related, but sort of, I think in terms of the tech people, the whole last mile way of dealing with delivery has got to change. It's a little beyond what we do, but this backing up our massive trucks into a small street to dump a bunch of packages is absolutely 20th century. And I agree about loading zones, but.
Can I just say good night to Benny? I won't be more than a minute.
I thought she was agreeing with me. Anyway, that's all part of the same conversation.
But you said something interesting before, which I've said a million times. The perfect should not be the enemy of the good. And we just have to, it's really easy to put in a loading zone to let not only delivery trucks get to the curb. I have a 90-year-old neighbor who I often see trying to navigate double parked cars. That's just wrong. And we could put that in to begin with, and then we could deal with this the last block delivery, right? But again, we don't have to have a complete solution for everything before we take a few steps, and there's 0 loading zones. And whatever the right number is, I once said that scientists have debated for years what the right number of hours of sleep is per night, but it's not 0. And so we all know it's not 0, and yet nothing changes. It's been years since we've adopted a resolution, and yes, they're thinking about it, and they're working on it, but when are they going to do something about it?
Look, I think let's take your concerns again to heart. Howard, we agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay, we're trying to work together on this. We know it's important to you, it's important to the community, it's clearly important to your 90-year-old neighbor. That's what we care about. We are going to work very hard to try to see this through and do our best and get you more information and ideally get this fixed, so we have.
They led us to believe it was coming.
Yes. Okay, so let's, I don't think we need to discuss this anymore tonight, so we understand. We hear you, we feel you, and Doug, and then we're gonna move it into.
Yeah, I just want to add for just a few things that, just to break this apart a little bit. What you just mentioned, we definitely have passed resolutions asking for loading zones, and it's very self-evident that if you're going down Columbus Avenue, for example, and you see 1 million double parked cars, whether you're on a public bus or you're in Uber, it is almost impossible to get anywhere. And so we've already called for general loading zones in the neighborhood. That is slightly different from a dedicated loading zone to any building over a certain number of apartments. Now, it's an interesting concept, but are we saying that that building has a dedicated loading zone for the residents of the building? Because really, when Fresh Direct or Amazon parks, they're unloading for the whole block. They're not going to. And then, of course, what I think is even more important is not a truck loading zone, but more of a pedestrian unloading for a taxi, Uber, especially for someone with disabilities. And so I just have to break it down. There's a lot of, it's not all lumped.
Again, the answer's not 0.
Yeah.
That's my only point.
Agree 100%.
Okay.
And I do have new business, but it's not very new. It's
Okay,
literally
and
2
then
seconds. In the past, this committee, over the number of years, we would have the traffic sergeants from the NYPD, the local precincts, come and report and ask questions. For different reasons, it sort of stopped happening. I think that we should invite them on a semi-regular basis.
Great idea.
From the 2.0, from the 2.4, have the traffic sergeant here, and we could be prepared to ask some questions, and they could be prepared to give a report. Doesn't have to be every month, it shouldn't be every month, in fact, but maybe quarterly.
So that's your area that.
Well, it's one, I mean, sure, I could speak to, we can talk to the traffic sergeant, the 2.0 and the 2.4, but just, remember when Sergeant Montgomery was here? So I just think it should be a semi-regular thing.
And Sergeant,
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Duly noted.
These are the traffic, so members of the New York City Finance who write tickets, do you mean that traffic?
No.
Or you mean-
No,
We
traffic
had like the
sergeant.
head of the.
No, the traffic sergeant.
Who is the
So
guy,
you mean
the
moving
gentleman?
tickets, moving tickets.
Well, I'm talking about, well, it's
The
not just
gentleman
tickets,
from the 2.0
it's all
always
about, it's
Oh,
the,
Right, so that's moving. I was thinking, traffic is usually, we think about like. people
no,
moving tickets.
not what was formerly known as the brown, no, not that, no, the
These are sergeants.
NYPD, traffic sergeant.
It's good, it's good.
That report on everything about traffic.
We even had the the head of the precinct come.
Oh, sure, well, the CO, I mean, yes, the COs would come here often, but being that this is the transportation committee, I would think it should be more focused on.
No, or the deputy, yeah, I mean, somebody who can update us, and they went like literally through like injuries, crashes, everything, when and where they happened.
Yeah.
So I think quarterly, that's a good thing to do.
Right? Would you guys, yeah.
Okay,
Let's try to get
you're
it
gonna
back.
take that on?
Sure.
Okay,
sure,
well,
sure.
we'll talk offline. Okay, I think that's it for new business. Thank you guys for
Thank you
joining.
so much.
Megan, can we get your last name? And I'm so sorry, you look exactly like a woman named Leora who comes to our meetings all the time. What's your last name?
The question is, when I was here last week, month, whatever it was, the presentation that was done by the architect, what's the final solution on that presentation for the park?
Are you talking about Sheridan
Streetopia.
Square?
And basically making a bike lane and.
Streetopia.
The
Oh,
Streetopia.
Streetopia.
Oh,
So I think one of the things that's coming out of it is, I mentioned earlier, I don't think you had arrived yet, but DOT has told us that they're going to be doing a walkthrough with Streetopia at some point in the coming, I don't know, what did they say, Andrew and Jamie, like in the next, imminently in the next month or
Pretty
so.
soon.
A walkthrough from Riverside to Central
To
Park.
do with Streetopia, with the group that made the presentation.
Yeah, I think it
And
would be
including
part.
members of the Block Association, and they're gonna get a public notice out, so you will be informed since you're on.
So it's not been approved, it's in the.
No, it's definitely not been
stages.
approved,
Because.
and they're gonna look for input, so I think they wanna make sure that you're there. We find out anything, we will, that's why I wanna get your contact
Okay,
information.
and my other really fast question is, I have tried to get the whole block behind me because one of those kiosks that basically give free Wi-Fi to the homeless, really, who knows who approved it back when? So I tried to get it removed because the homeless man is basically taking up the whole street and you can't really walk through. This is the walkway to Central Park.
Oh,
So
that's good.
I, right now, am trying to get the whole block to basically support this thing, which they won't listen to me. They told me they're not moving it. So how do I get it moved?
This is the kiosk where 72nd and,
So, in front of 53 West 72,
okay,
which the Dakota Bar is on the corner. Dakota Bar already had a
Right.
variant so that they extended their bar. So they took some of the sidewalk away. And then they decided to put this in front of 53, which is not a doorman building, which doesn't have a full-time super.
mhm.
And their garbage not only is overflowing on the sidewalk, it's overflowing in the tree bed. It's really bad.
Okay.
It's really bad.
Duly noted, duly
What?
noted. I said duly noted. We have to go into an executive session, but I will,
Okay.
I will take
Those
a
are
walk
not-
there
those are-
tomorrow.
those are- Right now, those are the only issues, but.
Well, there are so many.
Nadine, what is your last name again?
What's that?
Your last name?
Cohen.
Cohen.
Thank you, Nadine, for coming.
Okay,
Thank you.
this is the only one I've attended. I don't want to know anything else what's going on because I'm.
Well,
You're invited to
Thank
any
you.
of and all.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, I get the, obviously you need an update on the website. There should be better communication. I got an email
No,
at
you
three.
did, but you
Oh,
brought up
that's right,
great
you
points
came.
at the
I
last
got
one.
Right,
a
I
three,
remember.
I got an email at 3 o'clock. I didn't, whatever time I looked at it, it was 5 to 5 and you were looking for people. You know, you were looking for new members,
Public.
Oh, the public.
Oh, yeah.
whatever.
I think it was
The
a
email was
community
at 3
forum.
o'clock. It gave someone.
Today?
No, not today.
Oh, okay.
The last day,
Oh, are you talking about the community board applications?
Applications. Yeah, that's a borough president communication.
Yeah, that doesn't come from us.
oh, that doesn't
yeah.
come from, I mean,
No,
you know,
no.
like maybe they sent out 3 emails.
And they've
but-
extended the deadline, I think,
They've
so
extended the
there's still
deadline.
time if
Oh,
you want to
no,
join
no,
this
no.
board, you can still
I'm
do
in
it,
the middle
Nadine.
of making a rescue.
Peter, if you're still with
Thank
us, are you still, we're going into an executive session, which means that you're going to be booted off the Zoom.
I'm going to jump off. I was just wanted to say thank you to you all. And you've considered light a lot, and it's good to see you all. Take care.
Thank you for your intersection
Yeah.
suggestions.
And Jessie, is everyone off?
Just want to say lots of great work being done. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, whoever that is.
Who is that? Thank
Who
you.
was that?
This is Judy. Hi.
Oh, hi,
Hi, Judy.
Judy. We didn't see you. Thank you for joining.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Take care.
She must have been without her camera.
So we are, yeah, I guess we can shut everything off, right?
We shut off.
Thank you.
Jesse,
Thank you,
nobody
Jessie.
is remote.
You're muted, Jesse. You're muted.
You're muted.
What are we doing? Are we ending the Zoom?
We're in
executive
executive session and since no
So we're
one's
ending the Zoom,
remote,
yes.